So thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Billie Day, and I'm joined with my colleague, Jill Bowdon. So we're here to provide a little bit more detail about our Rel Midwest video, Literacy Instruction Strategies for Success, a multi-tier intervention in the primary grades, and how it can be used to support students in your districts and your schools. So we're here today representing the Midwest Early Childhood Education Research Alliance, which is based in Illinois and is funded through the Regional Educational Laboratory Midwest. So this video came about at the request of our partners here in Illinois. They were really interested in having a short clip that was engaging and fun that they could use during professional development with their teachers and their literacy coaches. They really wanted something that was steeped in evidence-based practices that they could use to discuss how to support readers, all readers in the classroom. So to design this video, we drew from the What Works Clearinghouse Practice Guide, assisting students struggling with reading. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jill.
Thanks, Billie. So as Billie mentioned, we designed this video at the request of our stakeholders based in the state of Illinois. We wanted to create a fun and easy way for them to start conversations about multi-tier intervention in primary grades. As people who work in schools, one of the problems that we've seen commonly across school settings is that many schools take a wait and see approach when they have struggling readers. They wait and see whether the student will catch up if given more time. As this video explains, we recommend that schools intervene promptly after identifying that a student is struggling using multi-tier systems of support. This video describes how to use universal screening and progress monitoring, how to use effective Tier 1 instructional practices, and how to support students who may need some additional support or scaffolding when they're struggling to learn how to read and to meet those grade level benchmarks. So now we're going to show a brief clip of the video just so you can get a flavor of what the video is. We hope this will pique your curiosity and that you'll go and watch the full video.
There is no evidence that children who are lagging behind in reading skills in kindergarten and first grade magically catch up. Reading skills are not something humans naturally learn, like walking or speaking. The majority of students require systematic, explicit instruction in how to decode unfamiliar words to make progress in reading. What should schools and teachers do instead of waiting and seeing? Beginning readers who are not developing reading skills at the same rate as their peers need additional support. The What Works Clearinghouse Practice Guides, assisting students struggling with reading, offers evidence-based recommendations for students in kindergarten, first, and second grade. Recommendation: screen all students for potential reading problems at the beginning of the year and again in the middle of the year. Regularly monitor the progress of students at risk for developing reading disabilities. Recommendation: as part of Tier 1 intervention or general education, provide time for differentiated reading instruction for all students based on assessments of students' current reading levels. Recommendation: as a Tier 2 intervention, provide intensive systematic instruction on up to 3 foundational readings in small groups to students who score below the benchmark score on universal screening. Typically, these groups meet between 3 and 5 times a week for 20 to 40 minutes. Recommendation: monitor the progress of Tier 2 students at least once a month. Use these data to determine whether students still require intervention. For the students still making insufficient progress, school-wide teams should design a Tier 3 intervention plan. Recommendation: as a Tier 3 intervention, provide intensive instruction on a daily basis that promotes the development of various components of reading proficiency to students who show minimal progress after reasonable time in Tier 2 small group instruction.
So this clip shows you a little bit about what content is covered within the video and hopefully gives you some ideas about how you might use the video in the context of professional learning communities or professional development in your schools or district. At REL Midwest, we've provided a viewing guide that accompanies this video and that provides some key questions that can be used as conversation starters. This video is appropriate for teachers, instructional coaches, and for administrators. You could use this video with your teachers to start conversations about the best evidence-based strategies for supporting struggling readers, especially in the fall of 2021, when we know that many students are coming back to school after a year of disrupted schooling. With instructional coaches, you can use this video to discuss ways to support teachers in implementing evidence-based strategies. And finally, with administrators at both the school and district level, you can use this video to really start a conversation about the extent to which they are implementing the What Works Clearinghouse recommendations to support their struggling readers. So we thank you so much for your attention today. For more information from REL Midwest, we invite you to follow us on Twitter at REL Midwest or to sign up for our newsletter to stay up to date on additional resources and events.
Hello, everyone. My name is Betsy Keating, and I'm a researcher at Mathematica that works on the What Works Clearinghouse, or WWC. Today, I'm going to present on a WWC resource to assist students struggling with reading in kindergarten through grade 2. The WWC is an initiative of the Institute of Education Sciences within the U.S. Department of Education. The WWC conducts reviews to identify well-designed and well-implemented research, then summarizes findings from that high-quality research. The goal is to help educators and decision-makers identify and implement evidence-based practices. To learn more about what the WWC does and its free resources for educators, I encourage you to attend our other sessions. Today, I'm going to provide an overview of the Assisting Students Struggling with Reading, Response to Intervention, and Multi-Tier Intervention in the Primary Grades Practice Guide. This practice guide was developed by an expert panel who drew on their expertise from working in this field and on WWC reviews of research. The practice guide includes 5 recommendations to help educators work with students struggling with reading. The recommendations progress from screening to Tier 1 to Tier 2 to Tier 3 services, recognizing the different needs of students. Each of the 5 recommendations includes specific steps on how to carry out the recommendation, along with common roadblocks and the panel's advice for overcoming them. I'm now going to walk through each of the 5 recommendations. On each slide, we've listed the recommendation at the top and the how-to steps for implementing the recommendation as bullets. The practice guide itself includes many more details on each how-to step. The first recommendation advises to screen all students for potential reading problems at the beginning and middle of the year. Regularly monitor the progress of students who are at elevated risk for reading disabilities. Help children learn how to break sentences into words and words into syllables. To carry out this recommendation, educators should create a building-level team to facilitate universal screening and progress monitoring. The table on this slide shows examples of target areas you might use for screening and progress monitoring. For instance, in grades 1 and 2, you could use a measure of oral reading fluency to assess proficiency in reading text accurately and fluently. Educators can use benchmarks on these measures to identify children at risk of reading challenges. The second recommendation of this practice guide addresses Tier 1 instruction. It states, provide differentiated reading instruction for all students based on assessments of students' current reading levels. To carry this out, teachers should be trained on how to collect and interpret student data, and then develop and implement data-driven decision rules for providing differentiated instruction. The third recommendation looks at Tier 2 instruction. Specifically, it states to provide intensive systematic instruction on up to 3 foundational reading skills in small groups to students who score below the benchmark score on screening measures. The table on this slide illustrates some of those foundational reading skills. For instance, in kindergarten, you can focus on letter sounds or listening comprehension. Using a curriculum that addresses the selected reading skills, educators should implement Tier 2 instruction 3 to 5 times a week, building skills gradually and providing frequent opportunities for practice and feedback. The fourth recommendation addresses identifying students for Tier 3 instruction. Specifically, the panel recommends that educators monitor the progress of Tier 2 students at least monthly. Use these data to determine whether students still require intervention. For those students making insufficient progress, school-wide teams should design a Tier 3 intervention plan. The table here includes some examples of Tier 2 progress monitoring measures appropriate for each grade. You can then use data from these measures to identify students that need additional support, and you can consider using it to regroup students every 6 weeks. The fifth and final recommendation covers Tier 3 instruction for students that need it. The panel recommends that educators provide intensive daily instruction to students who show minimal progress after a reasonable time in Tier 2 instruction. The recommendation includes 6 how-to steps, including adjusting the overall lesson pace and planning and individualizing Tier 3 instruction based on input from the school-wide team. To wrap us up, I wanted to provide a few links for additional information. You can submit questions about the WWC to the WWC Help Desk, linked here. We also link to the practice guide I discussed today and the full library of other WWC practice guides that address a wide range of topics. All WWC resources are available for free to download from the WWC website, whatworks.ed.gov. Thank you.
So it looks like there's a question in the chat box from Teresa. We have been trying to use other language besides struggling readers. Do you have thoughts on this? Things such as early readers or developing readers, less negative. So I think what you're getting at, Teresa, is taking a strength-based approach or using asset framing. Billie, Betsy, have you heard of any terms that you would recommend for Teresa?
I haven't, but I think that's a great point and important kind of direction moving forward. Maybe if anyone has any ideas, they can put them in the chat and share with everyone else. But I think that's a really important point to keep in mind. If someone said striving readers, that's nice.
Striving readers, yeah. I think we want to definitely encourage our students to have growth mindsets. I know that that's a practice that a lot of our teachers and educators strive to enact within their classrooms. So developing readers, I think, does sound like a good term to me.
Jill, there's another question.
Okay.
So you mentioned only decoding as important to early readers' growth, but surely we want to also support early readers' meaning making from the text.
Absolutely, yes. Experts agree that early readers need exposure to content in both reading comprehension and also our foundational reading skills. There's no debate about that, and that's very clearly communicated within the practice guides as a whole. So if I said that, I definitely misspoke.
Hi, Sherry. So if any additional questions come in. You're welcome, Sherry. Well, as we wait to see if any additional questions come in, we do want to thank all of you for your time this afternoon. It was really helpful to put these materials together, and we hope that you find it as useful when you go back to your schools and your students. We hope that the videos are helpful in professional development and that they really stimulate conversation, which is its intended purpose. We've also included viewing guides with the videos that have some questions that you can use during the conversations with teachers or with literacy coaches as well.
And I just dropped my email address in the chat box. If you have any follow-up questions, I know that the time for Q&A is short, but if you have any follow-up questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
We do have another question that came in. As we know, WWC strategies need fidelity of implementation. Does this contradict individualized instruction?
I would say there, I think, is a place to have fidelity in any level of instruction that you're giving. It may be harder to measure if you're looking to actually measure it, but I think there still can be tenets of fidelity at individualized instruction level as well.
And then another question came in, why isn't oral language identified as frequently as a key skill alongside phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and phonics?
David, that's an excellent question. I would point you to the Foundational Reading Skills Practice Guide. The very first recommendation within that practice guide is all about oral language, particularly with a focus on developing academic language. But you're right, that oral language is certainly a foundation for all of the skills. So you're right to recognize that.
Are there any additional questions? We are happy to answer them.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and attention today. Feel free to reach out via email if you have some questions that we weren't able to get to. I hope you enjoy the rest of the summit.
Oh, we have one more question. Once we identify the students, it's most critical that we use effective practices to combat their learning needs. Any suggestions?
So there are some detailed suggestions that are available in, I would say, all of the What Works Clearinghouse practice guides that are available. So there are practice guides that are available on topics related to foundational reading skills, reading comprehension, assisting struggling readers in multi-tiered systems of support, and also writing. If you go into those practice guides, the experts, which include both practitioners and researchers, have put together very detailed lists describing effective research-based practices that teachers can be using within the classroom, paying special attention to the systematic approach that teachers should be using when implementing those instructional practices. So I highly encourage you to check out those practice guides.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you joining us today.